Hi, everyone. I'm James Protin. I'd like to give a special thank you to our sponsors for the podcast, Candela's Barking Beauties, with 5 locations throughout the region.
Hi, my name is Kelsey Candelor, owner of Candela's Barking Beauties, where our salon is your salon. We have 5 convenient locations, no appointment needed. All breeds welcome. Any size dog. We are open Tuesday through Saturday from 8 a.m. till 6 p.m. We have 5 convenient locations: Elizabeth, White Oak, Finleyville, Monongahela, and Irwin. Love to have you visit us.
Okay, here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, today on the James...
Whoa. Time out. I said you could sit in the middle. I didn't say you could take over.
Boy, I'll tell you. Okay. Go, run with it.
No, you got to get the click right. You got to...
No, we're good. One
okay.
clack, because
Here we go.
it would just get it would go over.
Go ahead.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the podcast. This is episode 31, Nick. 32. So we're on a roll, as you can see. We have an amazing, interesting guest today, courtesy of my man Jack. Phil Bourque, the old 2-9er, Pittsburgh Penguins, and a million other things. And listen, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. And
number 29 in your program, ladies and gentlemen, but number 1 in your heart.
There you go.
2 minutes with the old 2-9er.
And of course we have my man Jack back in the co-host chair. And Phil, before we start, I got one thing I have to say. You know Kenny Cadwallader, young Kenny, okay? Yeah. I just want to be very clear before we start that every drop of athletic ability that Kenny has comes from his mother.
I knew that was coming.
Just so I wanted to make sure we're on the same page with that, because you don't know where that's going to go.
No, yeah, this goes without saying, actually, right. And I understand that.
You've met them both, and you know Kenny. So
I didn't know it was a roast today, boys. I didn't know
it's a roast. Yeah.
All right, Borky, you are straight from training camp. Straight from training camp. Before we get into anything, what are we looking at this year?
Order the rings. Let's get the parade going. We're loaded. No, no. This is what I'll say. This team that we have this year, getting the band back together, right? Bringing Gino back, Tanger back. You got Rusty signed, Casey the Smith back in the fold as backup to Tristan Jarry. They're loaded, boys. They are loaded. We've got so much depth, so much talent. But I will say this. Over the last 4 years, and even go the last 5 years, we've lost 5 straight series, right? Yep. That should not happen to this hockey club. If you want me to sugarcoat it, I'll sugarcoat it, but that's not me, right? Right. It's got to be a two-way street. Ownership, management keeps going, let's bring them back. Right. Let's do it again. Bring the boys back. Well, at some point, this team, these players, have got to say enough of this losing in the first round. Let's go, boys. We're the Pittsburgh flipping Penguins. Right. We got to start getting deep. And we're thinking conference final, right? Conference final. And I know, listen, it's September, okay? You can't win the conference final in September. Right. But I just think there has to be somewhere in your compartment, in your brain, there has to be, listen, we are still good enough to win a Stanley Cup
have that mindset.
With this team. You have to have that mindset.
You got to have the mindset.
But at the end of the day, let's all collectively knock on wood. Please do it on your noggin there.
Boy,
we got to stay healthy, because that's been the biggest hurdle for this hockey team over the last few years is injuries. Got to stay healthy.
100%.
Yeah. Well, it's a long season. It's a grueling season, as you know. You lived it, but just watching it, I never did understand how you guys do it. They talk about how in the NFL you get beat up. And they do. But what you guys, it's a brutal game. Yeah. It really is. What is that? When does it start to really take a toll on you? It's what, an 80-game season, 82-game season. So when does it really, you start to feel that?
Yeah, probably somewhere around the halfway point. You start those bumps and bruises, get to the point when you wake up in the morning and you kind of get to the edge of your bed and you're like, I'm just going to stay here for a while.
I'm not doing
this.
I'm not doing this.
Oh, we got a game tonight. How the hell am I going to get this, and you start to feel it by 50, by game 60, those bumps and bruises. But, hockey players, we wear that as a badge of courage, and there's nothing more valuable. You can fill your bank account. You can have all kinds of cars in your garage and all that. But there's nothing more valuable in the game of hockey than respect, and respect from your teammates, right? It's one thing to get respect from the opposition, but more importantly, inside that locker room. And when you're laying on the line physically, and your teammates, your brothers that are going to battle with you, see you, what you have to go through to play a hockey game or get through a playoff series, that's where you get that respect.
And you've been a part of what's probably the most grueling thing to do to your body physically is back-to-back Stanley Cup champs. Yeah. You're playing longer than anyone else. 2 years in a row, you're going deeper. And like everybody knows, from your perspective that has played in the NHL, the playoffs are a different animal.
Different animal.
Totally
Every game is like 2 games, right? It's like 2 regular season games. And you just can't think of next week or you can't think of next round or anything. There's such a tunnel vision that you have to have when you're in the playoffs that all that matters is next shift, next period, next game.
Right.
And when that's over, you do it again.
Do it
right?
over again.
And it is. I tell people this all the time. I'm 60 years of age. I've been through a lot, up and downs in my career. Thank you. I appreciate that. But it is the most difficult thing I've ever done in my life is to win the Stanley Cup, to go through that grind of winning 4 playoff series after playing 80 some odd games. But also the most satisfying thing I've ever had, to lift that trophy, look at your teammate in the eye and say, we did it, man. We did it together.
You know, and there's only so many people on the planet that can say that.
Yeah.
Right. And well, a couple things since you brought up the Stanley Cup. Did you actually carve your name on the inside of the cup?
I did. Yeah. It's an interesting story.
2 names, right? On the inside. Just 2.
Well,
you.
Go ahead.
There's is it a maple leaf?
No, people have done it. People have done it after me.
Okay.
But I'll just tell you the story real quick. Paul Martha was the president of the team back in 91. And this is before keeper of the cup. You know, there was no security or anything like that. And I was supposed to have the cup for 2 days after Paul Martha. He was going to have it on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. He had to go out of town last minute. He's down at the Civic Arena. You remember? Right?
Absolutely.
And I was living in the South Hills. He said, hey, Borky, I see you're next on the list after me. I got to go out of town right away. I got to get to the airport. I have the cup here at the Civic Arena in my office. If you can come down here and grab the cup, you can have my 3 days plus your 2 days.
Nice.
I must have drove up on every sidewalk, broke every law possible. I got downtown in about 7 minutes. So I pick up the Stanley Cup. I put it in my big Ford Bronco that I have, not the OJ one, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, right.
It was a red one. And I drove it. I brought it everywhere and that you ever would think in your wildest dreams you would bring it. I did that. We don't have enough time for me to get in all those stories. But anyways, long story short, I have it in my living room floor the night before I'm supposed to give it back, and I noticed something was loose on the inside. I'm like, oh shit, I can't return the Stanley Cup broken, right? Broken. I'm not a handy guy at all. I use TaskRabbit for everything, right?
Okay.
But I had a little red toolbox underneath my kitchen sink. I brought it out, and there's a little plastic covering on the bottom of the Stanley Cup. It's pretty simple, actually. I popped it off. I put a pen light in my mouth. I crawled inside the Stanley Cup, and I'm looking around, and this little nut had come loose from where the original bowl meets the rest of the tiered cup. I'm like, damn, I can fix that. I just tightened it up. Good as new, right? But when I was crawling inside there with the pen light in my mouth, I looked around, and I saw 3 French guys had engraved their name on the inside. Back in the 70s, they repaired it. They were silversmiths or whatever, or jewelers or whatever, right? It said repaired by like René Lévesque and Jean-Jacques St. Louis, and they put the date. And I went, bing, light bulb. Put some beers on ice, got that toolbox out. Took me 3 hours with a screwdriver. I put in quotation marks real carefully, enjoy it. Phil Bourque, Pittsburgh Penguins, 91 champs.
Beautiful.
So I was the first guy to have my name carved on the inside. First person really to have my name on the inside and outside of the cup.
That is awesome, and I'm glad there was some beers involved.
Awesome. Yes,
of course. That's
right,
awesome.
Let's real quick. 1982. You get the call. Come sign with the Penguins.
Well, let me stop you right there.
Yes, sir.
Okay, because it wasn't come sign with the Penguins. It was, this is the conversation, and I wasn't drafted. You're right. And so I went up to Kingston, Ontario as a kid.
Did you expect to be drafted? Was that an expectation of yours?
Yeah. Let me. So I'll back it up even further. I'm glad you said that. It'll help me back up the story a little bit. So yeah, we're talking 1982. I'm a kid from Boston. I went and played junior hockey, which was unheard of. Everybody goes to Division One.
How do you say the hometown?
Chelmsford. Right, Chelmsford, which is right next to Lowell, which is about 40 minutes outside of Boston. So all I wanted to do was play pro hockey. I wanted it so bad I could taste it. But back in the 80s, kids would just go and get to Division One, get your scholarship, right? And then after that, it's all bonus. Back then, it's probably 80% Canadians playing in the NHL, right? Maybe 10% US, 10% Euros, right? Anyways, my dream was to play in the NHL.
Okay.
Jean Rattel, who was playing for the Bruins, saw me playing in the high school tournament. And next thing you know, he was in my living room through a mutual friend. He's in my living room saying, hey, I can get you a trial with the Kingston Canadians. My good friend, Jim Morrison, who, by the way, used to play for the Penguins, is the head coach up there. Give him a call. I begged my parents to let me go up there. I could go up there for 48 hours, keep my amateur eligibility to still play college. Sure. If I stay longer, you're accepting money, you're considered a pro.
Okay.
After 48 hours, head coach calls me in. You got to remember, I'm kind of a cocky 18-year-old kid at the time, right? I'm sitting at a table like this. He goes, hey, Phil, I saw you, you look good. I'd like to have you on my team. So I said, hey, coach, can you write down the names of the players that I just skated against? And I knew who they were, but I wanted him to write them down anyways, that had already been drafted by NHL teams, a couple first-round picks.
Sure.
So he wrote them all down in a little notepad. I looked at him, put it back on the table, turned it around, pushed it back to him, looked him right in the eye like I'm looking you in the eye. And I said, hey, coach, I'm as good, if not better, than all those players. I want to stay here and play for you. He goes, that's good enough for me. He reached inside his pocket, pulled out $300 in cash. Said, go buy whatever you need. I'll call and get you a family to live with, a billet family to live with. Call your mom and dad, tell them you're not coming home, and tell them to send your clothes. That was it.
And that's it.
And I haven't been home since.
What?
Yeah. So to get to your question, Jack, I wasn't drafted. I expected to get drafted. I was working at a Gulf gas station, and you guys are old enough to remember full-service gas stations.
Absolutely.
I was pumping gas.
Absolutely.
I was the guy that put gas in your car,
You were
right?
getting assists way back then, Bork.
Gulf gas station in Chelmsford, Mass, up by the Rotary, right? And I told the owner, who was working in the office at the time, I said, listen, I'm getting drafted today. It was my 20th birthday. All the planets are going to line up. This is going to be perfect. I said, hey, my agent's at the draft in Montreal. He's going to call. I gave him the number here. He's going to call. Let me know when I get drafted. I didn't expect to get drafted in the first 3 rounds, but he said maybe in the 4th, maybe we'll see how it goes. 4th round comes around. I'm pumping gas. Owner's like, agent's on the phone. I come in. He goes, hey, I'm at the draft. 4th round's happening. I don't think you're going to get taken in the 4th round. I'm like, no problem. He goes, call you back after the 5th round. 5th round, blah, blah, blah. Same thing. Calls me in, pumping gas. Said 5th round, listen, you didn't get taken in the 5th round, but I just talked to the general manager of the Quebec Nordiques. Pretty sure they're going to take you in the 6th round. I'm like, at this point, I don't even care. I don't care. It would be the 10th, the 12th round. Didn't matter.
You just want to get in the league.
Never called me back. I never got another call from the agent.
Really?
Never got drafted. Yeah. I don't know if he just felt bad because he hyped me up or whatever. Fired him 2 days later. But I burnt my amateur eligibility. You know what I mean? Now I can't go play college.
Right.
I have no plan B. I'm all in.
You were all in.
I'm all in. And I got 2 phone calls. One was from the head scout of the Boston Bruins, my hometown team.
Right.
But my dad and I, we had a real abusive relationship.
Okay.
Both verbally and physically. So I need to get out of town.
Right.
I need to spread my wings. The other call was from the Pittsburgh Penguins. And this is exactly how the conversation went. Hey, Phil, saw you play some junior hockey. I'd like to invite you to training camp. Can't promise you anything. Can't offer you a contract. We'll give you a couple nights in the hotel and some meal money. That was it. That's all. But that's all I needed.
That brought you to
That's
Pittsburgh.
all I needed. And I remember it like it was yesterday. And I love telling this story. And people think, oh, Bork, you have it confused. It's the Fort Pitt tunnel you're talking about. No, I remember driving through the Squirrel Hill tunnel. I borrowed my mom's 1978 Mercury Cougar. Remember this car?
I do.
It was kind of peppy, though. It had a 351 in it.
Right.
But it was cobalt blue.
There you go.
Kind of a woman's car. But I didn't care. Borrowed my mom's 1978 Mercury Cougar. Loaded my stuff in there, and I came through Breezewood, came through that Squirrel Hill tunnel.
Okay.
And the city opened up.
I remember seeing the skyline. I remember thinking to myself,
this is where
I got goosebumps right now telling you the story.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm home, baby. I'm home. I'm home.
No kid, that's
what are you,
awesome.
a lunatic?
That's
What do you mean you're home?
That's freaking
You got a couple
awesome.
nights in the hotel. You got some meal money. I have
money.
nothing else. But we had training camp in Johnstown.
Right.
And guys are getting cut. Guys are getting sent down to the American Hockey League. And I end up being the last guy to be let go. But Baz Bastine, who was the general manager at the time, at the War Memorial, little corner office there, he calls me in and he says, hey, Phil, I want to offer you a 3-year contract. And I tell you what, man.
That was it.
That was it. And then, but there's a long pause. I'm like, oh, God, he's going to change his mind. Now what? He goes, because I really like you, I'm going to give you a $5,000 signing bonus.
Most money you've ever had ever.
I was like this. I was like, you're going to give me $5,000 to put my name on the contract?
And that was in 1982.
1982.
Okay. That was a little bit more than
But
$5,000.
you have to remember, I'm a very responsible 20-year-old at the time. So after taxes, you're talking about $3,800, roughly so. So what do you think I did with that money?
Drank for 3 days.
No, what do you think I do with that money? I didn't say I was a jackass 20-year-old.
Bought a car.
I bought a car.
Bought a car.
Okay,
Bought
so
a car.
1982, what kind of car?
A Corvette.
Oh my God, you're the first guy that ever nail it. I get Firebird, I get Camaro.
82 Corvette Stingray was a sweet
Beautiful car.
Put
was
it
a
down
sweet car.
because I was making and he offered me $60,000 to play in the NHL, $18,500 to play in the American League, which I was sent to Baltimore in the American League, but I didn't care,
Right.
Because I wasn't going to drag my ass back to my dad and say I didn't make it.
Right.
You know what I
That's
mean?
right,
And
right.
that was the beginning.
Well, that was your motivation.
Yeah.
That's why there was no plan B. That's why you went all
No plan
in.
B, all in.
That's why you went all
Yeah.
in. I mean, that took some stones at 8. You know, in 1982, you were 20.
In 82, I was 20. Yep.
That took some stones, man. I mean,
Push
it
all
really
the
did.
chips. Push all the chips to the middle of the table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's big.
I mean, as older people with responsibilities, maybe you don't do, but when you're young and you're brash and you have nothing, you have no
Pumping
you know what I mean?
testosterone,
Yeah,
you're just trying to-
yeah.
Yeah.
This you are all in,
And
and
they hand you 3,800.
$3,800.
And you buy the sweetest vehicle
Yeah.
you possibly. Yeah.
That's very cool.
And
That's a
for
great
years,
story.
I owned that car for
40 years
3
later, you're
years.
still here.
Well, I owned that car for 3 years. And I'm sure you've driven this route from Baltimore to Boston up Route 95,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Like thousands of people have driven it.
Right.
For 3 years, I could fit everything I owned in that Corvette. Put all my clothes, and if I put the windows down the passenger side, I'd scooch the sticks.
Sticks out.
I'm talking about hockey equipment and everything I own.
Everything.
In that Corvette. And I drive home and the season's over, back
That
to
luggage
Boston.
department is big.
Look, this big. But if I put the window down, I could scooch the sticks out the
Yeah.
side, I'd make it down.
That's
Yeah.
That's the best. That's just the best.
That's a classic.
That's
You know,
the best.
I want to ask you something. And when Jack first brought your name up to be on the show, obviously we were very excited about it.
Yeah.
I have grandkids that play ball hockey, a little bit of ice hockey, but mostly ball hockey, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I was a kid, we're about the same age. I'm 62.
Yeah.
So in the 70s,
Bork,
and
you
into-
look way better.
until of course he does. So until after he leaves.
Right.
So we weren't hockey fans. You know,
Sure.
we played football first, we played baseball
Sure.
because the Pens weren't very good.
Sure.
Right? The Pens didn't become the Pens until your group.
Yeah.
You know, so now there's literally an explosion in this part of the country.
Yeah.
So one of my grandsons plays on Team USA. He made the team for ball hockey in his age group. Most of the kids are Western Pennsylvania kids. Team PA, all Western Pennsylvania kids
Yeah.
because of what you guys started in 82 moving forward, right? Those 2 cups you guys won, okay, that created the Pittsburgh Penguins, all right? So this whole, I don't know what you want to call it. I mean, it's like, you know, again, even when, you know, my son.
It was a movement. I mean,
Yeah,
you guys.
I mean, it's just, it's hard
Well,
to
let's say,
explain
boys, let's
anything
just say
other
it.
than
Though.
that.
I appreciate you saying our group, but let's get real about it. All right,
Soissons-Cis.
It's Soissons-Cis. It's 66,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah,
and to have
absolutely,
and that
absolutely.
wave probably carried over. It's still carrying over. But
I
now
think
you've had
it is,
another
yeah.
giant tidal wave come right behind it, and that's
Right.
87.
Exactly,
Right? So
exactly.
why?
Well,
Why?
if you-
I say this all the time.
If you look at it realistically, the Pittsburgh Penguins can say something that I'm not quite sure any other team can say. We have proudly bolstered the greatest hockey player on the planet 3 times, because right after 66 was 68.
Yeah.
Who
Yeah.
was the best
But
in
why?
the world.
Why I say this all the time? Why us?
Why, yeah,
Right?
why us?
We're the sleepy little corner down in southwestern Pennsylvania.
exactly right.
I mean, there's other great hockey markets that have never had.
Most
a
people outside of here
66,
can't find
68,
Pittsburgh
and
on a
87
map.
and 71. I mean,
Right.
these are legendary Hall of Fame players
Yes.
that you're lucky if you get one of them, and we've had multiple.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and
In
the tradition has carried on, and you know, again, from you guys forward through Sid and all that. But it's just amazing to me how, you know, when you think about the time frame, 82 to now is not very long when you consider how long it took the Steelers to win, how long it took the Pirates to win, right?
Yeah.
The Pens did it in a very truncated window, you know, and I think that to me is probably the greatest achievement of that organization.
One thing you can say that when you said why us, well, there's an unfortunate side to why us.
Because we sucked.
Because we had to be that bad at one point.
We had to be
in
that
time
bad to get
that
there,
good.
right.
To
Yes.
get that.
No,
good.
you're right.
Okay, I'm going to be fanboy for a second, if you guys don't mind. Now, I asked you about this a few months ago. You have been involved, though. We can talk about 66. We can talk about 68. You have been involved in 3 of the biggest plays as far as Penguin fans go. One of them, not so much with the save.
Oh.
And if you can briefly tell that, for those of you who don't know the save, Frank Pietrangelo makes a save on Peter Stastny that is called the save. Yeah. It is known as the save. The reason Peter Stastny...
Why don't you let him talk?
Well, the reason Peter Stastny was so open was...
Well, I was killing penalty at the time. We had a pressure formation. We were going to pressure the half wall, and then once that pressure happened on the half wall, everybody had to rotate. I was a little asleep at the wheel, and my guy, I was supposed to rotate towards the front of the net to cover Stastny. It was
Peter.
Yeah, Frank Pietrangelo. Who was in for Tom Barrasso, and we're down 3-2 in New Jersey. And if they score that goal, I think they go up 2-0, 2 goals, right? And I had the best seat in the house. As I was trying to scramble and get back and get a stick on Stastny, Frankie just kind of reaches back and throws his glove up, and you call it luck, you can call it Stastny shooting it in, whatever it was. Yeah. But it was one of those saves that, again, it got a name. It got saved.
Got a name.
Yeah, got saved. Yeah.
Now the other 2 that are just unbelievable. 92, game 1, and we're down 3-0 to the Blackhawks, who have just reeled off 11 straight wins to set the record.
Right.
And we're down 3-0, and I asked him about this because this goal was one of my favorite goals, and I thought it was just a basic wraparound, and you told me what?
That before that, Bob Arie and I were sitting on the bench talking about Eddie Belfour, the goalie for the Blackhawks.
Sure.
How he didn't look very comfortable in wraparounds. The puck coming out from behind the net. Yeah. He was kind of falling forward. So Bobby had said to me, hey, if you ever get a chance on a wraparound, don't try to jam it between the skate and the post. Take an extra step from outside the goal line and shoot it. And that's exactly what I did. So I that puck was kind of frozen in time that nobody knew where it was. It was sitting behind the net.
Yeah.
And I was out there on the power play. I don't know what the heck I was doing out there on the power play with Mario and talking to guys. And I just picked it up around the net, and I remember Bob Arie saying, "Take an extra step." And I came out from behind the net and found the 5-hole.
I watched the video twice this morning in the lobby. I mean, I swear to God, I watched it twice. It's just great. And the last one, this is my favorite. One of the top 8 goals in playoff history all time is the Lemieux basically coast to coast. He splits Wilkinson and Chambers and makes Casey look difficult. And the assists on that goal goes to the old 2-9er. And you told me that Mario had 2 things that he would do.
Yeah. He had a certain way that he would yell for the puck. And this would happen in practice all the time. He would either give you a yip, and that meant just get it to him as quick as possible. Didn't have to be on his tape. It didn't matter. Or he'd give you a yip like that. It meant you have time, get your head up, move your feet, and make a good pass to me. Well, it was a shot on Tom Barrasso. It bounces off Tommy in the slot. And just as I'm picking up the rebound, I hear the yip like that. And listen, I might be a little dumb, but I'm not stupid. I know who to get the puck to. And I threw it up. It must have been 4 feet behind Mario, but with his ridiculous reach, he picked it up and never broke stride. Just came crashing through the middle of the ice, and as you mentioned, gave the how do you do and see you later to Wilkinson and Chambers and then that long reach. I don't know why Casey would decide to poke check a guy like Mario, but Mario left him out on the Parkway. And it's one of the greatest goals ever.
That series, you guys really victimized Casey. I mean, Casey really took a beating.
Yeah, he did.
On that one. From Lemieux to Jimmy Pack.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's good.
From Lemieux to Jimmy Pack,
no,
everybody
got one on
victimized him on that one. Let me ask you this. We can talk about Lemieux. We can talk about Crosby. We can talk about Yager, all these greats. There's another great that you had the privilege to sit down next to for I'm not quite sure how many years. Mike Lange. Arguably maybe the best. What is he like in his preparation? What was it like? What did you learn from him? How did that aspect of, okay, I'm done playing. Now here's where I'm going with this. And I've got to play with 66. Right. Now I'm sitting down with this version of 66.
Another Hall of Famer, right? Another Hall of Famer. Right. He's already in the Hall of Fame. He's been in the Hall of Fame for, 20 years now?
Yeah.
I started my broadcasting career working with Paul Steigerwald for 2 or 3 years. My first year in the booth was Marc-Andre Fleury's first year, 2003.
Okay.
So a couple years with Staggy, and then a little change in the booth where Staggy went to TV, Mikey comes to radio. I'll be honest with you, the first probably good year, it was choppy. There wasn't a flow because Mike is different the way he calls a game.
Absolutely.
And he expected me to be better. And to answer your question, this is maybe a long answer to your short question.
No.
Is he just gradually and slowly and just at the right time in Mikey's own way, just like, hey, Borky, when I do this, why don't you try this? You know what I mean? And so we just kind of had this and back and forth. And finally, it just kind of came together, where I understood where he was coming from. And he has given me so many little tips on how to be a better broadcaster. And number one, you mentioned it, preparation. That's the biggest thing.
Now, I heard a rumor. I heard that he actually, would go into the locker rooms and talk to the players.
Oh, yeah.
The call-ups and everything. But he at the time, there was no laptops.
No.
But I heard he wrote everything 3 times.
Yeah.
That he would transfer it 3 different times before he got to the booth.
Yeah.
He had it to the point
hours, and it starts the night before, and now it starts the night before for me, is doing a lot of the basic stuff, the foundation, and then day of the game, you fill in kind of all the blanks. Mikey's preparation is second to none. Not only just knowing the names, so many Euros now, it's so difficult to know the names and the numbers, but he does more than that. That he's got so much in the hopper, and maybe you use 10% of it. That's it. You know what I mean? But
it's there.
That's what it is. One of the big things that Mikey has taught me is how to use my voice. And I never knew this before. The inflection, the volume, all of that. And how to have the passion that I have for the game and for the Penguins inside of me. How do I make it come out? One of the best things he ever taught me, he said, hey, Borky, do you know there's a lot of blind people who put the radio on?
Wow. That's something.
You
never think of that.
And they're expecting you to paint the picture with your words and to put them inside the arena, that they're there, sitting there, and you are the painter. And I tell you what, that stays to me. Every goal that I describe, I try to use that.
That's huge because I saw on SportsCenter, Vince Scully said exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
Right. And Mike Lange's in that same echelon with Vince Scully, and he said, those old radio guys. I mean, they describe you could close your eyes if you were a blind person. You could see it.
Yeah.
And and I wanted to ask you too. Listen, you were a great player in your own right. To me, anybody that made the league, you were a great player. I mean, that simple as that. But playing alongside Lemieux, arguably the greatest player that ever played the game. Yeah. He's in that conversation, regardless of who you like or what you don't. He's in that conversation. What was that like for you? Just you were a grinder, you were a physical player. Mm-hmm. You had a skill set, but here comes this guy who's like, I mean, obviously. You know what I mean? What was that like?
I'll give a couple quick stories. First of all, everybody's flavor's a little bit different, right? Maybe you like chocolate, maybe you like vanilla, maybe I like strawberry. And some people say Gretzky is the greatest. His stats, they don't lie.
They don't lie.
You're exactly
more
right.
assists than anybody else has points.
Take away
right?
the goals and he's still,
But for my flavor, complete player was 66. Was Mario. So I ranked them Mario, Gretzky, Bobby Orr. After that, if you want to go Gordie Howe, you want to go Sidney Crosby, I mean, there's a list of players. But those are my top 3. I'll give you 2 quick stories. First training camp, I'm playing defense because I played both. But I'm playing defense in this training camp. Mario's first camp in '84.
Okay.
And I remember, I hadn't made it yet. I mean, it's still a bit of a minor leaguer, right? Couple cups of coffee up with the big club. Yeah. So I'm trying to I'm going to make a name for myself. So I'm going to lay this kid out, right? He comes flying through the middle of the ice, kind of has his head down. I'm going to pop him, right? Boom. Just when I'm about to drop the shoulder on him, he pulls a 360 on me, and I go head first into the ice. And I'm like, well, this guy's different.
This is a different animal.
This is a little different, right? Another quick story. I think it was about 89 or 90, somewhere in there. Training camp, first day, and I established myself at this point. I had a house in the South Hills, and I was in Pittsburgh all summer long. I was working out like crazy. I was renting ice here and renting ice there, and just working my tail off. First day of training camp, we have a scrimmage. Mario has like 3 goals and 5 assists. We're about to go off the ice, and I come scooching up to him. I go like, hey, big boy. I go, you are unbelievable today. Like, I got to ask you, I've been in Pittsburgh all summer long. I've been in the gym. I've been out skating. I haven't seen you anywhere. He goes, this is the first time I put my skates on. I'm like, that's all you need to know. Mario was the natural.
That's it.
You know, Mario was the natural. He didn't work out a lot, which maybe hurt him a little bit with the back.
Right.
Sure.
Right. But you talk about natural hockey strength. His hands and his forearms, they were so freakishly
big dude,
strong.
too.
6'5".
Yeah,
right.
he's a big dude.
And long and lanky, and people thought he looked kind of slow. But people didn't realize when you're on the ice skating with him, it's because he had a long, powerful stride. He looked, from afar, he looked slow. But on the ice, and that's why he would blow past defensemen, because they'd be like, he's not.
No, it was a lope. He almost like loped along, but he did it at
very powerful.
Yeah,
very powerful.
If you watch the Ranger series with Gardner, he's right with Gardner.
Yeah.
Who was the fastest guy in the league,
right.
and the captain's right with him, and it was unbelievable. It was unbelievable. You had 22 goals that season. Was it?
I had a couple 20-goal seasons, I got to play with Mario quite a bit, actually. There was a bit of a rotation between myself and Bob Erie and Kevin Stevens.
Right.
You know, we'd kind of rotate through depending on who was playing
now,
well.
you're there, okay, for the first absence of Lemieux, and John Cullen is exploding.
Yeah.
He's exploding.
Yeah.
And Mario comes back, and you deal him.
Yep.
What was the feel on that one in the clubhouse?
Sucker punch right in the groin. Yeah, because he was as beloved. Everybody loved Cully. And we also knew how important he was to our team.
100%.
We don't make the playoffs
He
if
wasn't
it's
just
not for
leading
John
the
Cullen.
Penguins. He was
top three, top five in the league.
Right.
Yeah, he was right there. I mean, he had an unbelievable year. Here's an undrafted player, played at BU, but undrafted, smallish player that took his game
off the charts
to outer space because Mario was out with his back. And number one, we don't make the playoffs if he doesn't keep us afloat, number one.
Exactly.
Number two, because he was playing so well, we were able to make that deal with Hartford to get Ronnie Francis because of John Cullen. And John Cullen is not playing. He's not that piece. We didn't have another piece.
Yeah.
Like John
the deal
Cullen,
doesn't happen
a center
without
iceman, to go to Hartford so we could get Ronnie Francis.
Right.
And I've said this. I said this in the locker room right after the game. And I think it was Bill Clement had interviewed me. And I said, hey, I just want to, in case he's watching, and he was watching, I said, I want to send a shout out to John Cullen because this Stanley Cup is as much John Cullen's as anybody in this room right now. And he appreciated that, and he knew how much he meant.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's huge. You know, little things like that get overlooked. You know what I mean? People looking back, just the casual fan like myself, would look at that season, would never even think of that. Of
course not. Yeah.
You know, and that's how championships are made. You know, those quirky little things that happen over the course of a season. That's.
I've said this 1,000 times, and I truly believe this. When you think about, you know, teams that have won, whether it's Washington, St. Louis, Tampa Bay, right? You look at all these teams that have won Stanley Cups. You're only as strong as your weakest link. And if you're talking about like our kids team, like Shaha, right?
Right.
You're only as strong as your weakest link. Right. So if you've got somebody that's really struggling on the fourth line, or you're a 5 or 6 defenseman, you're probably not going to win. Right. Your backup goaltender's got to be. It's all got to perfectly, and we had that.
It's a team. It's a team.
Yeah.
It's a team sport.
It's a team sport. The ultimate team sport. Yeah.
Even with a guy like Lemieux. I mean, Lemieux didn't win those cups himself. You guys, the team. That's why I said your group when I said that in the beginning. I mean, obviously he was the guy on that group, but all of you won those cups.
Yeah. You know, and that's why and I talk about this anytime your name comes up. That game one, it will go down in history as arguably the greatest comeback in a finals game history. And in Chicago, against Chicago. And it's just a great game. Yeah. It's a great game of hockey. I think Dirk Graham had the hat.
Dirk Graham was unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, unbelievable.
And every time he just kept going and kept going. But at 3-0, if you don't score, and they scored right after you scored, they scored to make it 4-1. Yeah. But if you don't score, it doesn't happen.
It brought the crowd into it because it's game one of the Stanley Cup final. It brought the crowd into it, and it put us within 2 goals. And within 2 goals with our group, there was always hope. There was always belief. You know, down 3, if the period ends with down 3-0, we're probably not feeling that good. You know, but like we were able to hang around. We had that ability that 2 goals down, 3 goals down. If there's enough time left on the clock, we always believe that we could come back.
Yeah, and that's awesome. No, I mean that's really, you hear that so many times from, and it doesn't have to be just a professional level. You know, that belief in each other. Yeah. You know, from kids to high school to college to pros, it's all the same. You believe in each other, and if you're out there playing for the guy next to you. You're going to win more than you lose.
Okay, now you brought it up, and you just said kids in high school. I gotta know, Borky. A goalie? How a goalie? How does?
I have a simple answer for you. My son's a goalie, but he, through squirt, I guess you get to a point. He played both.
Right.
You know what I mean? And when he wanted to play as a skater, he always played defense because he liked defending more than scoring.
Okay.
And he never was super gifted. He kind of felt like, okay, if he's going to be a skater, he's probably better off as a defenseman. But here's the story I'll tell you. You play knee hockey with your kid?
100%.
Okay, right? Right in the basement. So we're playing knee hockey. And it's about that time when you kind of have to pick a position,
Yeah.
So he'd be diving all over the place whenever we play knee hockey. He never wanted to be the shooter. He always wanted to be the goalie, right? We had the mini nets, the whole thing. So one day he's feeling his oats a little bit. He's like, hey, NHLer, let's go. Come on, give me your best. I'm like, okay, here we go. So I rip one, and I get him good. I get him right up by the collarbone. My son's name is Dylan. Boom, down he goes, face down. He's on the carpet, right? I'm like, oh, shit, here we go. So I'm like, Dill, you all right? You all right? And I go up, and I'm like, Dill, sorry, man, I didn't mean to hit. He's like, oh, Dad, you got me good. You got me really good. He goes, oh, but I kind of like it too. That's it. I go, you're a goalie. That's it. And ever since, his personality. He's got that personality.
He does. He's
got a great ability. I mean, he's letting some crappy goals, right? He's had some bad games, but he's got this ability where for an hour, he takes it so heavy on the heart because he cares so much. But I'll see him 2 hours later, and he's got a smile on his face. He's laughing.
Can I give him a shout out?
Yeah, great.
I'm gonna talk up Coach Tabai and our team real quick. We pulled off a huge upset 2 weeks ago, beat Penn's Elite, and Penn's Elite, Weber, I believe it was awarded a penalty shot. We're at the Lemieux Center. Everybody's watching this game. Everybody's watching this game because nobody wants Penn's Elite to win anything ever. So it's the truth. So everybody's watching this game, and they award the Penn's Elite a penalty shot. And Weber's a good shooter. And we're watching it from the other end. And he starts off, he trots down, and I'm standing next to, another shot, I'm standing next to my buddy Bill Tomko, and Billy goes, the 5-hole is wide open. And I'm thinking to myself, if he's baiting him, man, is he baiting him? Because he's waiting and literally left that 5-hole wide open, left it wide open. Weber dipped the shoulder, he closed it off, the shot rings off the pad and goes wide. And I looked at Tomko and I said, geez, that was huge. Huge, under the pressure and the whole 9 yards. So I see what you're talking about. He was probably genetically predisposed.
Well, also, my son goes to North Catholic and he does the Penn Excel with all those guys.
Right.
So he sees them as
he
shooters.
sees them every day.
So he had a little inside info.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
So is there more stress playing in the Stanley Cup playoffs or watching your son play?
Oh, come on. You know the answer. As a goalie dad? Yeah.
As a goalie dad, that's rough, man.
What, though, but I try to instill this in my son, that you have to embrace when you have those butterflies, and that's the thing. Like, if I had a lot of butterflies or anxiety before a game, I knew I was going to have a good game. Even though it was like gut-wrenching, especially in the playoffs, like you almost feel like you're going to vomit a little bit. I like that. And you have to embrace that.
Yeah.
And those with the elite athletes, they don't go south when they have all, it's a big game and big moments and they get all tense.
They want that.
They wrap their arms and legs around it and they just love. And I try to instill that in my son, that those moments, those are the ones that's why you beg for. That's how you play. That's how you either go this way or you go this way.
Right.
So those moments, some goalies never get those moments. So when you have those moments, embrace them. How they're going to go, you never really know. Give your absolute best, and hopefully it turns out in your favor.
No, that's why you play. That's why you play.
Yeah.
Have you ever coached him?
No, I've never coached. People have asked me that before. People have asked me what I do now. Like, what, you ever think of getting out of the broadcasting booth? I don't have this burning desire. I love what I do. I love my job.
Sure.
I'd like to do it for another 15 years if I could. I absolutely love being a broadcaster, talking about hockey and talking about the Penguins. I don't have this burning desire to be a coach. Even though as a dad sitting in the stands and you watch what the coach is doing, you're like, man, that seems pretty obvious to me. Why isn't he doing this? But I don't want to be that, former NHL player that thinks he knows it all. You hear stories about in other sports, hockey dads and football dads. They just think they know everything. And I try to keep my mouth shut. And if the coach, wants my opinion, I'll give it to him. But in the meantime, I just try to be a normal hockey dad, and I don't have this burning desire to coach.
No, that's good, because that's a tough thing to do. It's next to impossible to do, and it not only does it stress you, it stresses the kid, right?
Right.
I've seen. I never coached, played hockey. Like I said, we weren't inspired by the Pens back in the day, right? So, but everybody wanted to be the Steelers because and when you think about Pittsburgh sports in the 70s, right? The Pirates bookend it with 2 World Series championships. Right. Steelers win 4 Super Bowls. The decade of the 70s in Pittsburgh. Yeah. I mean, that was the center of the sports universe.
You're right.
Yeah.
Right. So we don't know what's coming next. Then it's all cyclical, right? I mean, the Pens were blessed because, again, like you said, you had that. Mario goes out, Sid comes in, and all that, and they've been able to maintain that. The other franchises haven't, right? Yeah. But the Pens literally saved Pittsburgh in the 80s going into the 90s.
Without question.
Yeah, you're talking it's 30 years, right? Since 31 now. Yeah. But you have 5 Stanley Cups in 30 years, 31 years. That's impressive. But I will say this though, because and maybe this is more of my emotions coming out of losing in the first round the last 4 years. Steelers, I can't even remember the last time they won a playoff game, and never mind the Pirates, right? So I have a T-shirt that says City of Champions. You know what I mean? I don't wear it out though. You know what I mean? Right. Because we said that very proudly for many years.
Yep, that's exactly right.
We're kind of losing that luster a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think you put this on the Steelers too, right?
You're exactly right.
And the Penguins, so we're going to get that back, man. That's why we opened up this podcast talking about, you asked me how the team is. I said, we got to get back, man. Yeah. We're good enough. We have Hall of Fame players. I don't care if they're 34, 35, 36. It doesn't matter. They're still good enough to win a championship here. Yeah. And we're the Pittsburgh Penguins. We're the city of Pittsburgh. We're the city of champions. We got to get back to that because it's waned a little bit.
Look at what we're doing with the Steelers, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about now, we're hanging our hat on the fact that we haven't had a losing season since 2003. Yeah. So when did 8-8, 9-7 become okay?
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Because we've had more of those than we've had double-digit winning seasons lately.
When you lose a guy, let's be honest, we took a hit with number 7. You take a big hit.
Listen, 7 was he may be. What do you think about this? 7 may be the most unappreciated superstar, Hall of Fame caliber athlete
definitely
in my lifetime.
Definitely in his era, without question. In his era. Yeah, without question.
I would listen to these guys talk about Phillip Rivers and Eli Manning, his first ballot Hall of Famers. Yeah. Never mention this guy.
No.
And that, I mean, do you think is it a personality issue? Because the numbers are there.
Yeah.
I mean, the numbers are absolutely there.
I just think my knee-jerk reaction, I think of what happened off the field with him. Yeah. Was it in Colorado?
Right.
Was there something else in Georgia?
Yeah.
The motorcycle thing that was all around the same time. I think that kind of took a chunk out of what BED stands for. I got to know Ben over the last 3 or 4 years, and his wife Ashley. And his wife Ashley is a rock. And I think
Ben's I've heard that
has come out the other side because of Ashley, that she's kind of set the standard for him that he's trying to meet now. And listen, as men, we always strive to be better people, right? We all reach that crossroads every day. I do a lot of public speaking. I think Ben has realized that little voice that sits on our shoulder, that the first thing it says to us, right? Some people might say it's your conscience. Other people might say it's the Holy Spirit, however spiritual you are.
Right.
And I think Ben's kind of reached that point now. When that little voice tells you to do something, it's usually the right thing. Right. We should also listen to it a little bit more.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. You need to listen. That's interesting. Did you guys, when you were playing, did you guys have good relationships? Did you hang out with the other
a little bit? And all that I got to know Bobby Bonilla pretty well. And Barry Bonds and those guys and Mike Lavalier.
Mike Lavalier.
Lavalier. Yeah. He's from my hometown, like not my hometown, but my area.
Okay.
As a Massachusetts boy, so you got to know Spanky, right? You got to know those guys, but. I don't think there's a lot of crossover even to this day. You kind of bump into guys at events,
right?
But everybody just kind of walks down their same path and does their own thing. Yeah.
Can I be fanboy again? This is I've been waiting.
Why are you even asking? You're going to do it anyway. You've been talking about this. Go ahead.
I'm
giving you that.
We'll interview you next time.
You got. We can. Mike, go ahead. It's like
okay. I have to know this.
But listen, you hug him. We're drawing the line. There's no hugging.
Is that off limits?
Yeah, that's off.
Okay. Yeah, no hugging.
I had to check.
All right.
I got to know this though. As far as guys, when you're talking about guys you get to know and guys, who was the guy when you played in your day? Who was the guy that you absolutely just could not stand from any guy in the NHL?
I don't know if you know the name. His name is Bob Rouse.
Vaguely, but
he was a defenseman for Washington Capitals. He started with the Caps. He ended up going to Detroit. He won a couple. I think he was with the team both in 97, 98 when they won the Cups there. But in those early 90s, he's a boy from Saskatchewan. And he was kind of just a big, strong defenseman, just played within himself. Mm-hmm. But he had a switch, and he was strong as a grizzly bear. And I don't know what I did to Bob Rouse. I should find out. But, back in the day when you kind of have 5-on-5 scrums,
Yeah, right.
So it never failed that when we got into it with Washington and everybody's picking a partner, I'd be looking to, for Dino Ciccarelli, right? And there's Bob Rouse, and his eyes would be lighting up like a Christmas tree. He's like, you, and he grabbed me. And I remember I tried to fight him one time. It was seriously like trying to fight like the Empire State Building, like King Kong. I was like, oh my God, this guy is freakishly strong. And I did something to tick him off. And it happened like 2 or 3 times to the point where I just stayed away from him. I feared that guy more than anybody else. Guys would try to intimidate you with words. I'm going to carve your eyes out. I remember Steve Thomas, that played for the Islanders and a bunch of other teams, he said, I don't care how long the suspension is. This is on the face-off. I don't care how long the suspension is. I'm taking you out. And that was the only time I believed him. You know what I mean? And every time I jumped over the boards, I was like, where is he? Where is he? Right? Because guys just say they're going to carve your eyes out. I'm going to take your knee, whatever. You're like, okay, good luck. Right? But he said it with such conviction.
With conviction.
I think this is the first guy. He actually means it. He doesn't care how long the suspension. He's taking me out.
Yeah, that's crazy.
The young players now, though, they have the luxury of there are websites dedicated to mic'd up.
Yeah,
and it's the NFL. It's a little bit tougher for the NBA, obviously, but the NFL, Major League Baseball, and the NHL, they have mic'd up, where just about everybody has a mic on, and the chatter that they're picking up in the NHL over the last, I think it's 8 years that they've been doing it, is priceless. If you've never listened to it, it's priceless.
It's the best.
And you guys you were in that era where you didn't have it, and it slowly came around. There's the famous. I don't even think you can tell this one. There's the Kevin Stevens.
Oh yeah, it's easy.
Well,
Brian Trottier and Kevin Stevens with Brian Bellows.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, but the language. I mean, you got
the language is. But you know what? Like people like oh, Bork, yeah. I'm like that with our group. We had a bunch of alpha males. I mean, we had a bunch of guys from Old Samuelson to Kevin Stevens and the list goes on. Guys that. Like they had the best chirp, they had the best smack, whatever you want to call it. So that was all our we're on the bench. We're just like, oh, this is just another game.
It's a classic clip.
But the mic, right back in the early '90s, the mics were finding their way, and that is you can go on YouTube and tell the story.
And you know what? Too, I hate that this even happened, but we talked about '66, we talked about '68, we talked about '87. Trots.
Yeah.
You mentioned Brian Trottier, and as soon as you said it, I felt guilty about it. You played with another. Trots is a legend.
Yeah.
6-time.
Well, with the assistant
Islanders.
coach with the Colorado Avalanche, he has 7 rings.
7 rings.
Yeah.
And now, what's this guy like in the locker room? Because you guys were trying to win the cup, and he had been there, done that.
Right.
And what's he like in the locker room?
The best. One of my favorite people of all time, as well as favorite teammates. To come in his early to mid 30s, and people forget before Mario, before Gretzky, there was Marcel Dion and Brian Trottier. They were the elite center icemen in the league.
Right.
And here's a guy that, maybe the best duo, arguably the best duo, Mike Bossy, the late Mike Bossy, R.I.P. Right, and Brian Trottier, Trots and Boss. Right? Was there anything better than those two?
Yeah.
And for him to come to our team because he was having some troubles with a contract negotiation with the Islanders.
Right.
Craig Patrick brings him in. He was the perfect fit.
Yeah.
He was great for Mario because Mario wasn't real vocal in the room. So Trotz would kind of be like, "Hey, big boy, why don't you maybe the guys need to hear this from you." And he was really good for Mario. But he was such a calming influence, and then you have Paul Coffey in the room too.
Oh, sure.
But I mean, it's just. But Trotz had a way that. No matter what situation, he could be a 4th line center or 4th, but so unselfish, the most complete team player. What it meant to be a team player. When we needed to have a team lunch, wink, team lunch, it'd be Trots. Let's go, boys. Saloon in Mount Lebanon, noon lunch, mandatory meeting. We'd be there.
Awesome.
We'd figure everything out. But it was guys like that. When he spoke, everyone was like, oh, call the wife. I'm not coming home.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, good stuff. Tell me what your thoughts are on the fighting in hockey, right? Yeah. I get a lot of this from people that don't know, right? And they'll tell you, in football, you get in a fight, it's a penalty. In basketball, it's a foul. There's ejections, right? In hockey, if there's no fight, people leave the arena disappointed, right? What's your thought on that? Where did that come from? What is
you bring a good point. When you think of all of sports, there's only 2 sports that allow fighting: boxing
and hockey.
And hockey, right? Because you can 5 minutes, in the boxing, you're right back in the game again.
And you're right back in.
I'll say this, and maybe this is a little bit of the old school coming in play here. I enjoy a good hockey fight that's just out of raw emotion, which just spills over.
And that's what it is. It's emotion.
It's emotion.
It can change a game.
It can change a game.
Maxey.
Yeah, Max Talbot.
Yeah, changed the game.
With Daniel Carcillo, back in 2009. Changed the game. I'll say 2 things. Number one, I enjoy a good hockey fight because it lowers the temperature of the game. Usually there's a build-up to that. It doesn't just happen.
It doesn't just happen.
Yeah,
right.
usually it's slow build-up, number one. Number 2, I think if you're a guy that runs around, has your stick up high, the fear of maybe having to fight brings it down too. So it's a way for players to police the game without the referees being involved.
Right.
But if you take fighting out of the game, you're going to have some guys that have, aren't that brave, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And they're running around doing things knowing that I don't have to fight. I don't have to, it's not,
there's no consequence.
You're going to get tossed out of the game.
Yeah, there's no consequence.
Yeah,
right.
So I like that there's still that fear and there's still that verbal intimidation.
Well, it makes sense. It actually makes sense.
When you look, Borky, from 82 to 2022, the type of athlete that we're dealing with now, if you had a guy that had Ovechkin's size back in your time, he was maybe a grinder, third.
Sure.
And now, when did you notice it? Obviously, had to start happening in your time. But when did you notice, like, holy mackerel, these guys are getting in shape. They're big. This is crazy.
I think the lockout, 2004, 2005, when we missed that season, came out and they changed the rules a bit, and it became a speed game, became more of a skilled game,
right?
And salaries went up, right? And I think players started to train differently, personal trainers, personal chefs, dietitian, the whole thing, right? It became a full-time business, right? Because there was so much money on the line. And, those guys that were, for choice of better words, goons, right? 4th-line goons,
right?
Whether it's a number 6 defenseman or that number 12 forward,
right?
Those guys were all getting weeded out, right? There wasn't a place in the game anymore because of the rule changes and just because of, more players. And I think the Europeans, the influence of European players and their skill level going up, whether it's the Germans or Slovenia, where, those all went up a tick where they became more prevalent in the National Hockey League. And those guys that were goons, all of a sudden they were out of jobs.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, we brought up names like Coffey, Gardner, these guys were incredible, fast skaters. Bobby Orr was maybe by himself in his era.
Right.
And then it progressed. Now it seems like
it's training.
Yeah, everybody's flying.
It's
everybody's
training and diet and all that stuff. It's a science, right? Yep. It's a science. There's every town has a place that specializes in that field, right?
Down to the, yourself with Dylan and the boys, it's trickling down.
Absolutely.
Where, these kids that are, especially our age group is, everybody's looking to make a move here in the next 2 years. Juniors.
I think to your point, though, also, you have the USHL now, which wasn't available. So you have that in between. So the players that maybe are a little bit later developing, they've got different avenues they can go for that 2 or 3 years where they need to be a man, where they maybe, where before, if that's not there, and they don't get a Division I or they don't go to Junior A in Canada, all of a sudden they're like, oh, I have no place to play. And they're pumping gas at the Gulf Station, right? But now they've got a place to go that's credible, that teaches them how to be a man, how to take care of your body, how to train, how to manage your time and all that. And it gives them that little in-between. You see in so many kids come out of this USHL league, right? First-round draft picks, all that, that was never available 20, 30 years ago.
That's big.
What is, obviously, like I said, you left training camp today. When does Phil Bourque's preseason prep start? Or are we in it right now?
We're in it now. It started. I never really shut it off. I'm always all summer long taking mental notes, writing things down. So it's always there, but now it'll go to another level where I actually, in my brain, I'm already thinking about Sunday's first preseason game against Columbus. So I'll start taking little notes on Columbus and what maybe is special happening in their camp and our camp,
right.
The young guys. But you never really shut it off. Yeah. It's just, and I think that's the way. If you want to be good as a player, you want to be good as a broadcaster, it always has to be something like a maintenance program in the off season.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. And, circling back a little bit to the youth side, do you see more American kids, whatever that means, into hockey and moving up into that elite level?
Yeah. Well, you brought up a good point. Like, even if you have ball hockey and deck hockey, which is crazier in this area, right?
Yeah,
actually, where I'm from in
huge.
Central Mass and Western Massachusetts, it's huge there also. But it gives kids the itch, right?
Right.
And that's what you need because they have choices, especially here, right? Yeah. All the peer pressure. Oh, you got to play football. We got a great football team. Plays football.
This is
right.
Football. Yeah.
But now kids are saying, no, I want to play hockey. And there's rinks and there's coaches and there's programs.
It's amazing.
And so, I guess to answer your question, when teams from Pittsburgh go to Michigan or they go to Minnesota, they go up to Boston area and they're winning these tournaments or they're getting to the final, like we have credibility here. We have respect here.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think that's because, because of the wave of Mario and because of Sid, rinks are being built, coaches are getting better and the opportunities are there and kids are making those choices to say, no, I don't want to play football. Hockey's cool. The Penguins are cool. I want to play hockey.
That's exactly right.
Logan Cooley.
Yeah.
Who, goes third overall out of West Mifflin.
Right.
Out of West Mifflin.
Right.
So somebody has to say to themselves, hey, wait a minute, we got a kid from West Mifflin here.
We can do it.
Let's have a look at, Southwestern PA.
Right.
Yeah, it's well, and you bring up football, and this has always been football first. We've always been that, even before the Steelers. This has always been, Steel Town, tough kids coming out of the, but I love what hockey gives kids, what it teaches kids, right? Hockey at a young age teaches teamwork more than any other sport.
Right.
It really does because, when I started going to deck hockey games and deck hockey tournaments, and, I like I said, I was never a hockey guy, when I was a kid. So I didn't know the rules. I didn't understand all of it, but then I'm sitting and watching it because I was a basketball guy, right? Football and basketball. I coached high school basketball and, I'm thinking, wow, this is the strategies, the way the game flows is very similar to a basketball game. It's very similar.
No, and I when I do my public speaking, that I think if you own a business and you have a guy that's played hockey to a high level,
right?
You should really interview him.
Yeah.
Deeply, because to get to that level, you're right. The structure, the dedication. And you're talking about the perseverance,
the work ethic,
the work ethic, all of that.
Right.
The hockey teaches you the teamwork, right? That it's bigger about the crest in the front than the name in the back.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
That's
and
exactly
that's
right.
instilled. And to get to these higher levels, if you're not going to buy in on that, you get weeded out pretty quick, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, hockey's an honest sport. It's a brutally honest sport sometimes.
Yeah.
If you don't fit in the locker room and the team environment and the structure of the team, usually you get weeded out pretty quick.
Well, and that's life. That's business.
That's life in business, right?
In my day job, I've been in the engineering business for 40 years, right? I'm not an engineer by education, but I've been in that business. I do business development now, okay? I have to have a team that I can go to the city of Pittsburgh, for example, say, okay, you need a bridge design. We need to compete for that. If you don't have that team, I don't care how much they like me, right? We're not getting that work unless the team can back it up.
Sure.
So being a team player is so critically important. In business, you don't need superstars, right? I'd rather have a team than that one superstar, and hockey teaches that. I always thought soccer was a great starter sport. But I'm all in on hockey now. Now that I've seen my grandkids have played it, it's amazing. Even for girls, the USA women's adult team just won the world championship in deck hockey.
And
Did
now,
you see that?
Women and people don't realize, if your daughter wants to play hockey and she's 10 years old, get her in.
Absolutely.
Because they're getting Division I scholarships. Women's hockey, I know they're trying to build that women's pro league. And it's kind of stumbled a little bit, but Division I women's hockey,
it's huge.
And then hockey in the Olympics, and I get it's mostly U.S. and Canada, I get all that because the other countries are a little bit behind. Okay, a lot behind. But at the end of the day, like I've coached in little hockey camps I've done. I've coached girls at 5, 6, 7, and they love it. But they get to a certain point where they get all in, just like the boys. Yeah. And to be able to get a scholarship worth $200,000, $300,000 to go to Michigan or Michigan State or Boston University. It's incredible. I'm all in on women's hockey.
Yeah, and those are great schools. That's not like those are like these little things. Those are the best schools in the country that are offering women's hockey, which is phenomenal.
And like Jamie said, the women's team just won the ball hockey
world championship.
Yeah, that's great.
Won the world championship.
Awesome. I love it.
Look, Bork, when you agreed to come in, he could tell you I was like a little kid with it because I'm like fanboy.
Phil, it was embarrassing.
It was
embarrassing. It really was.
We're back to roasting Nick.
It was embarrassing. Nick was embarrassed. Nick said,
really?
He's.
Is there ever a time when you say, I can't talk hockey anymore?
No. I obviously I love it.
Because I was very.
I love it. Yeah.
I was like, I don't want to.
Yeah.
It's been your life.
It's my life.
It's literally been your life.
And like I said, I'm not educated. I'm not ashamed to say that. I'm not educated in anything else. I'll be honest with you.
You know hockey.
I know hockey.
Yeah.
And I'm passionate about it. And again, Mike Lange has helped me to take what I have inside here and have it come out in a way where other people feel passionate about what I'm passionate about, and they can buy in. So.
Well, you've really succeeded in the booth, and
it's not easy to do.
There's been more than one former athlete that has failed miserably in that role, right? Because that's not something you just naturally do. This isn't natural, right? Especially if you're doing it on television.
Right.
But you've succeeded at that, and that's to your credit, because you may not have a college degree, right? But you've got a degree in life. Right?
I still use one of yours. I don't know if it's an original 2-9er. But where Mama keeps the peanut butter. Is that yours?
No, we used to just on the ice.
Okay,
that would be things that we, you're maybe doing something after practice and you pop one underneath the water bottle or something like that. And someone will be like, yeah, right where Mama keeps the peanut butter. But
I use it around the house, and everybody in my house hates me because I do nothing but quote.
There's a lot of things that I don't know. I probably should write them down someday. A lot of little things I say during a game that either are from my days youth hockey or even in the minor leagues early on that I use or are really very personal things to me that I just jump in and out because that's the thing. That's my job, right? I'm not the play-by-play guy. People think I do. I'm the how and the why and the color guy, right?
Yeah.
So I jump in, I jump out, jump in, jump out, and a lot of it is personal stuff.
Yeah,
and that's hard to do too. It's hard to know when to jump in. That's what you talked about with Mike Lange.
Right.
When do you jump in there as the color guy?
And when to just shut up.
Yeah.
That's the other part.
Yeah.
You feel like, wow, I haven't said a word in a minute and a half, but that's okay because that's the flow of the game, and that's my adjustment to what's from Paul Staggerwald to Mike Lange is. I knew that, and at first I took it personal. I'm like, this guy won't let me have a word in edgewise. I'm like, can I talk once in a while? But then I said, wait a minute. This is a Hall of Fame guy. He knows what he's doing. Just shut up and get out of the way. He'll let you in when it's time to get in, and then you better have something good to say.
And
then shut up and get back out of the way. Yeah. And that's that flow. That's that chemistry that a good play-by-play and color guy have.
Yeah, and I have to admit this too, and this is going to be terrible. But
You're killing me, man. You're killing me.
I can't help it. The worst.
This is not therapy.
The worst ever was the worst ever ad lib, whatever you want to call it, was Metallurgy Save. It was just horrible. Who was the guy that did Metallurgy Save? The guy that was in there for Mike for a minute. I think when Mike was doing the TV, this guy was doing the radio. Or I can't think of his name.
I'm not
he
sure.
used to use Metallurgy Save. God, it was awful. If he's listening now, I apologize. But
he's outside waiting.
Yeah, he's outside. Yeah,
he was an older guy. I think I got him. But I take the jersey over and But it was just terrible.
Yeah.
No, you're fantastic.
No, it takes work, and that's what Mike taught me. That hey, how you used to prepare for games, take all that work ethic that you have, put it into your job as an analyst.
Let me ask you this then. We have a mutual friend of ours, Mike Malone, is here with us, and Mike said that you're telling me that how good you are at ad libbing and everything. He said it took the one ad campaign you guys did. It took like 200 takes for you to get it right, or something like that.
That's because I'm a perfectionist, right? So he would say, it's good. I'm like, no, we're doing it again because I want to nail it. He's like, no, that's good, Bork. We're good. I'm like, no, we're doing it again. So it wasn't so much Mike, it was me.
Mike, the one you did for the what was it? What was the campaign with the Red Pump? Was that were you actually drinking the hooch or what was that?
Of course.
Was it? Well, hey.
I mean, you want me to lie to you?
Well, maybe you're a method guy. And it was iced tea or something.
No,
you know,
man. It's not against the law to have a little bit of whiskey, right?
Not at all.
Right.
Not
So
at
if I'm
all.
going to sip the whiskey, I'm going to try to sell you the whiskey, right?
Right.
It's going to be the real deal.
That's
There you
right.
go. There you go.
That's right. Borky, I don't know what to say. I mean, having you come in and sit down with us, it was a little kid's dream come true.
Good, man.
Even though you're not that much older than I am.
A couple of years.
There were 2 years in a row where Paulson and Kren ruled the airwaves.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
And the morning after was me driving to work, and you guys just beat whoever in overtime, and it was just the best.
That's where my love for being on the radio actually started, because the media relations people would come around and say, hey, there's a radio station, WDVE morning show, want somebody to come on.
Those
And
guys
would
were
be like, no,
class.
I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. They finally came to me. I was like, all right, I'll do it.
Yeah.
So I went in with Paulson and Kren.
And it was the best.
And we just hit it off right away.
Yeah.
And I remember, I was like, wow, I remember leaving there going, I kind of like that. I was like,
is
hope they
pretty
invite me
cool.
back. And brought me back again. And Merrill Hodge was the Steeler guy, right? So he'd be on Tuesday and I'd be on Wednesday type of thing, you know?
Right,
Went back,
right.
and that's where I went, wow, I like this. I hope I get asked to do it more. And that kind of lit the fuse a little bit to be into broadcasting.
It made you, everybody knew Mario and everybody knew Coffee and those guys. And it almost made it feel like if I ran into a gas station, if I ran into here, then you were in here, I'd be like, Borky. And I could just start talking
But
to you.
also, I think you've realized I can be brutally honest. You
Yeah.
know, on the good side and the bad
Yeah,
side.
yeah,
I can
sure.
actually, I do that show sometimes in the morning before practice, and then I'd say things maybe we weren't playing that well. And I know some guys are kind of looking at me like, hey, heard you on the radio this morning. I'll be like, okay.
Okay,
all
play
right.
better.
You know
What's
what?
the truth?
Right.
Yeah, play better.
But that's the way it was. And I still walk that line as a broadcaster. And sometimes I drive home and I'm like, man, it was a little too tough on Chris Letang tonight, and you walk that tightrope.
Right.
But people also tell me, I love how honest you are, and I love how passionate you are about what you talk about. But also, what people forget, and whether it's Chris Letang or somebody else, that when they do something good, I'm on the mountaintops. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I'm shouting it from the mountaintops.
Right.
So I think I have that credibility because I've been there and done it before.
Right.
But also, when it's good, nobody's gonna toot your horn better than me. But when it's bad, I'm gonna hopefully say it in a way that I want it said about me if I was the player.
People, fans, whatever you want to call it, people appreciate that.
They see
right?
through it.
Because there are those guys out there that are nothing but hype men.
Homers, right?
Yeah,
and homers, and they
exactly.
just blowing smoke up your backside.
Right.
As
And
a
people
true
see
fan,
through
they
that.
see through it. Right. Yeah.
Now, Pittsburgh, Ranger, Senator.
And then finish my career in Germany.
In Germany, right.
Yeah.
Of the 3 NHL cities, and it's a loaded question because you won the cup here and everything, but is it in New York, obviously with Madison Square Garden, or Ottawa, is it the way it is here? Is hockey just no?
First of all, New York is just so big.
So many,
Right.
too many
You can
distractions.
go anywhere, right? You can go anywhere and nobody's going to recognize you, number one. Number two, it's, you live out, I lived out in Westchester County. Now guys, maybe they live in the city more, but you don't really get to embrace the culture,
Right.
because it's just so
Right.
diverse in
Right,
New York.
right.
Here, we're a big town, but we're a small town.
Right.
Yeah,
And
right.
that's what I love about Pittsburgh. My birth certificate says Massachusetts, but I feel like I was born here. I've been here not only because I've been here so
That's
long,
fantastic.
but I just have a connection because people are real, man. Right?
Oh, yeah.
And it comes from
Real
here.
life here.
Right?
Yes, you're
It's
exactly right.
And Ottawa was different. Ottawa's Canada. They're so emotional. When things are going good, you know what I mean? Like it's Order of the Rings, right? When things are going bad, they just want to fire everybody and trade everybody, and it's too up and down for me. It just wasn't for me. And playing over in Germany was just fun for me because I knew my body was breaking down. I just wanted to quit on my terms, end it on my terms, which I was able to do, so I have no regrets.
Excellent. That's
Fantastic.
fantastic. That's fantastic, man. And I think, when you're at the level you played at and you can walk away and not regret that,
Right.
that's huge. It doesn't get any better than that.
Yeah, it doesn't get any better than that.
You know,
No.
you had a great career. Listen, I appreciate this. You're a good dude, man. I mean, it's the first time we've met.
Thanks, man.
But I will tell you, you're real.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of guys, when you think about a professional athlete, you know what I mean? And we tend to put our professional athletes up on a pedestal here. You know, and some deserve it, some don't, right? But I've been around a lot of them. Mike has too, that are just they're aloof. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, and I can tell you right now, there aren't too many guys like you that would come and sit down with a couple of schmucks like us, right? You know, we're fans, but you know, we try to do what we try to do here is tell a story.
Yeah.
Right. Because there's a story behind everything. Right. And we just do this for fun.
Yeah.
You know, and the fact that you came down and sat down and talked to us and you were real, I appreciate that, man.
That's
I really
what I want.
do.
That's what I try to do is when this is all done, and you're driving in your car, maybe a week from now, a month from now, 5 years from now, I hope there's something that you can take out of this, what we just talked about right now.
That's what it's all about.
And remember, because you're right, there's a lot of athletes that were way better than me, made more money, drafted higher than me, won more championships. I hear them speak. You ask me a week later what they talked about?
You have no idea.
Sounds like a teacher from Charlie Brown.
Right. I have no idea.
Exactly
so
right.
hopefully, you know, there was something in there, whether it's about work ethic or you know, I talked about my relationship with my dad being so violent and abusive, you know, like
I can relate.
And about forgiveness. I mean, we didn't really get into that. We don't have much time, but you know, my dad and I, we didn't speak for 10 years.
You came to Pittsburgh, okay, just so you didn't have to stay at home.
Yeah.
You know, and in doing that, you found a home.
Yeah.
That's cool.
That's what I mean. Like,
that's some cool
at
shit
the end of the
right
day,
there.
find something you love.
Yeah.
You know, maybe if you're 50 or 60, it's a little more difficult. But if you're still young, find something you love. Go for it, man.
Just do it. Go all in.
Go all in. Just put your head down and run. The thing that you fear the most, put your head down and run straight into it. And
Borrow mom's scooter and hit the road.
You might come out the other side, right?
Yeah.
Borrow mom's car and just hit the road. And you might
like
come through it and you come out the other side and be like, wow, I had no idea that this was waiting for me.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you think about how dramatically different your life would have been had you stayed in Boston. I mean, you can't even think of that.
I can't
But,
even
you know,
think of that.
with
I have
everything.
no idea what I would have done.
Yeah.
No idea. Maybe I'm working, I don't know.
At the golf station.
Maybe I'm still working at the golf
You never
station.
know.
Who knows?
You never know.
Oh,
I mean,
maybe on the golf station.
Or maybe.
Yeah.
I don't
maybe.
know.
There's a lot of maybes out there, but you know, Pittsburgh loves you. You love Pittsburgh. I mean, it's a perfect match.
Perfect fit.
My friend, thank you so much.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate it, and enjoy the rest of the day.
Okay.
100%. Thank you, Bork.
Cool. Thanks, guys.